Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Nintendo Fanboyz, and I'm here with Steven. It's been a little while since the two of us have gotten together to do a Fanboyz, and well, it's good to be back. I'll try my best to be peppy and excitable and basically the regular Jared, but no promises because I just got back from Austin, Texas, and for anyone that's listening who happens to be from Austin, I just want to say very quickly, you guys have a beautiful city. I've been to a lot of different places in the States, and there's nothing quite like it. It's really, really unique. Steven, you'd actually really like Austin. You basically go from like skyscrapers and like your typical like downtown quote unquote sort of like cityscape, and within like maybe a 20-minute walk, you're in what looks like the deep country where you have like beautiful lakes and rivers and things like that. It's really something. And Serena came with me. We had a really, really good time down there. Just got back, so I'm a little bit tired. And yeah, so I was kind of worried that we weren't going to have a chance to do this podcast, and Steven actually went ahead and soloed one. But when I came back, we were like, oh, okay, well let's go ahead and do a podcast, because we actually have a lot to talk about today and some really good, really surprising stuff. I think for a lot of our listeners out there, I think you're going to be surprised by some of the things that we're going to talk about, or at least how passionately we're going to talk about some of these things. So why don't you go ahead and take it away?
This is funny. It's almost a minute 30 into the podcast, and you finally give me a chance to speak.
Are you surprised? Are you really surprised?
And you say you're worried that you're going to be too tired.
Well, yeah, it wasn't a 5-minute intro like normal.
Yeah, well, anyway, I'm really excited because today we have a lot of stuff to talk about. And like you mentioned, you were off to Austin. I really, really like the pictures you sent me, by the way. The food there sounds awesome. It sounds right up my alley.
Oh, it's right up your alley, and it's right up everyone's alley. I must have gained like at least half a pound or so.
Half a pound.
No, really, seriously, the food was fantastic because you're so close to Mexico. You get like, well, it's called Tex-Mex for a reason, right? So you get like your classic, Texas barbecues, like a lot of steaks and things like that. It's cattle country. But you also get a lot of different Mexican dishes, and then you get a lot of different areas that do fusion. So they'll do, just random things mixed with other things. In particular, we went to a taco fusion place, or a fusion taco place that was really unique. So you had things like some Korean, Vietnamese, other types of cuisine that were merged with Mexican. Very, very good stuff. We went to, I think it was called the Roasted Fork, Roaring Fork, that's it. And that was an amazing steakhouse. Oh my God. If you were there, you would have died. I know you. You would have died. We started with mussels, and then we had like a 16-ounce steak. You could get up to, I think it was 22, 24 ounce. Just mushrooms, asparagus. They had this wicked mac and cheese. We went to a Russian place one night. That was really, really good. We also went to a place called Moonshine, had some drinks there, and I had this chicken fried steak that was just amazing, man. So yeah, the food was just awesome. I don't know how everyone doesn't walk around there weighing 800 pounds.
Yeah, I would have, I know myself, like, if there's one default I have, and I have many, is food. Like, I can't control my portions, and I usually eat until I'm, like, my stomach hurts. So I wouldn't have gained just half a pound by going there. I would have gained way more than that, and I found it so funny that you complain about gaining half a pound.
That was a joke, just so you know. I don't think I gained anything, but whatever. It takes a lot for me to gain weight, and I love the way that you say if you have a default. That's really funny.
Yeah, it's my French speaking.
I know, it's great. I love it. That's why I don't say anything. But I know you. You really would have enjoyed the city, just like me. You would have loved the food. Everyone is so damn polite that I'm starting to question where Canadians get their Canada Canadians. They're so polite. Serena and I were looking at each other and we're like, there is no one, and I mean no one back home that is anywhere near as polite as these people. Like, just walking down the street, just about everyone you meet is good morning, how's it going? Even the homeless people were chatting with us. They're like, oh, it's a beautiful day, and like things like that. Serena and I were like, what the hell is going on here? It was crazy.
Yeah. Sounds like a really, really fun time. All right, so I don't know. Did you have anything else?
No. I just was. It was a really good time, and I'm glad to be back. For everybody that's listening, you're probably expecting the content to continue. So I just want to have a little quick disclaimer here. Content's going to be a little slow for about 2 weeks, I want to say. Hopefully not 3, but I'm going to try my hardest to just make sure that the content gets back to normal within the next couple of weeks. But it should be understandable. I went on a vacation, so, I mean, I think I deserve a vacation every now and then.
Well, you just had one.
Exactly. So now I got to get back to work. So the content's going to be a little slow because I didn't have time to catch up. And while I was gone, obviously nothing was getting done because I'm the only person who does anything around here.
Yeah, you are. And that's the way it's going to be for a while. I was thinking that episode I did, what do we do with that? Do we keep it as a lost treasure? And in a few thousand years, someone will find it in a vault somewhere? Or
I don't know.
Do we put it as a special lost episode on YouTube since you don't have any content coming?
It's up to you, really.
It could go up as a special. We'll mention that it's not the official episode 33 anymore, but still, it could go up.
Yeah, I could do something like that. It's entirely up to you. I know we were talking offline about Patreon and stuff like that, and it's something that I want to open up that discussion again. I know you have 50 million ideas. I'm not really so concerned about that. I'm more interested to see if people are interested in anything. I actually liked your idea of, releasing content early or things like that, where you could do some. Well, it doesn't have to be you, but whatever, that we could do some content, I don't know, like exclusive type of stuff. Nothing for our staples. So nothing for like the Saturn Day type stuff and things like that. But I don't know. I just don't know like how interested people really are. Because I've been doing some analytics and I've been looking through different things, and our size channel with around 8,000 subscribers, I'm rather shocked, but like some of the Patreons, people are bringing in like $500-$600 a month. And I was like, well, wow, because like $500 a month, $600 a month. Obviously, I don't plan on quitting my job, especially not for that. But like that's a good chunk of change. Like that type of funding could get you equipment to help me out. The thing is, you have kids. So how realistic would it be for you to actually help me out?
Yeah, I think it's not that unrealistic, because not in the near future for sure, because Soka is only 6 months old, but my oldest will be 3 soon, and like at that age they become a lot more independent. They sleep at night the whole nights, and now we're potty training him and whatnot. So I imagine that eventually, like, I'll be able to help you out rather easily, especially not just because I can, but because I want to, because like I've told you, like I really like talking about video games even more than playing actual video games sometimes. And the only way I get to interact with people is through this channel and with the rare text that you send me. So like this is something that not only I could do, but I really want to do eventually. But not rich. Like I have a good job, but I need that money is also not only for me, but also for my fiance and 2 kids and all that. So there's no way I could justify buying like an actual computer that would be good enough to be able to be of any use to you. So yeah, it's a possibility. I would tinker with this, see what the people think, because then again, I don't want people to send us money for us to go out and buy like restaurant stuff. I don't want this to be just an extra money, because this will never be our full-time jobs. It's just that it could really, really help out with content, especially with you, because like you do everything around here, and I'd really like to contribute more. So this is something that is worth thinking about and seeing what we could offer, and maybe if people are interested, because it would require a significant investment, I believe, because we have, like you say, 8,000 subscribers almost, but not all of them are active necessarily. So like when we do these podcasts, like we always see the same people commenting and whatnot. And I know that your Saturday videos often get a lot more comments and whatnot, but it would be curious to see if any would be willing to pledge like $1 or $5 a month to us. Like, how much would it actually take for us to get to that $300-$400 a month thing? That honestly is a lot more than we'd ever need.
No, precisely, and this is why I've always been reluctant, and I've even done videos on this. I've done vlogs talking about that very subject, saying how like I love the job I have. I do. I love it, and while I enjoy this, it's different. You know what I mean? Like I don't know if I can make that clear. This isn't something, I don't know if I would say like I don't want to do this full time. I don't know if that, because I love doing this too. I love interacting with everybody, but I don't know. It's like I have two different Jareds. So I have the Jared that works in continuous improvement, and I love doing that. It's an amazing feeling walking into different organizations and different departments and helping make people's lives a little bit better. I mean, that's a fantastic feeling. But at the same time, I also really enjoy doing this. And so a lot of these Patreons that people do, they're like, oh, well, you know, I want to do this full time. Well, for me, it's like not really. It's not something that I would really want to do as my day job, like every day type of thing. But the funding certainly could help in terms of longevity of what we're doing. So you've mentioned a couple of things to me, and I don't know if I don't know if I want to mention it or not. It could be a secret moving forward. But Saturn Day will come to an end, and you know that's the inevitability of it, and not because I don't want to continue it, but because we're nearing the end of the games that were released that fall within the parameters of what I wanted to cover. I did not want to spend, you know, a year or 2 years covering some of the worst sports games imaginable. That's why I purposely said Saturn Day will encompass all of the main releases on the Sega Saturn in North America, excluding your, you know, NHLs, NBAs, and all this sort of stuff, because most of those games have aged so poorly that it's just going to be like the same review, copy and paste it over and over and over again. And I was like, well, there's no fun with that, you know? And we are getting close now to, you know, that point where I'm going to have to start thinking about, well, okay, what comes next? And I don't own anything like I do with the Saturn. So there's nothing that I could follow this up with and say like, oh, well, I have, say, every single Dreamcast game ever released, so I can go ahead and do this. Or like the Wii, there's like 17,000 games released on the Wii. Let's do like a Wii Day or something like that. That's just not possible without some kind of external investment. It's just not possible. Like I would not be able to do that because I can't afford to spend $80 a week for example, or whatever, $40 or $50 or whatever it is on different games and stuff that would be required in order to tackle another system. And I think that's totally understandable. But that's where Patreons and stuff like that can help. Because, for example, if you wanted to start a new series, we could say, well, okay, let's take the first 5 months of whatever we get, throw that into an account, and then that account you pull on and purchase the different equipment that will be necessary or things like that. I mean, right now, guys, we're just talking. Obviously, we want to hear what you have to say, but I'm trying to give you my vision of where I see something like a Patreon. So once you use that money and you had set up what I have here, where you have like a little workstation, then if the funding continues, well, then that's where you could potentially look into series like that and say, like, well, okay, we're going to use this funding to purchase those games for those future reviews or something like that.
Yeah, for now, this is all like talk in the air.
Yeah, it's hypothetical.
Yeah, we'll see. Hopefully, we get a few comments, and you mentioned that you get feedback from time to time. This is obviously a long ways to go, but I have a feeling one day we'll try this on and see what it goes. If it fails, well, it fails.
Yeah, and I mean, let's be really honest. Just a handful of years ago, I never imagined that we would be nearing 10,000 YouTube subscribers. I did not imagine that would happen, and yet here we are. So, who knows? Who knows what the future holds?
All right, so I completely lost my train of thought here.
Great.
Well, I guess we usually start with what we've been playing, but I believe we'll cover that a lot more later. So let's get on some top-selling games, shall we?
Go for it.
So I think you and Ahmed talked about this a while ago, and it's something that keeps been mentioning in the media, is that indie games are finding a home on the Switch, and they are outselling every other console. It seems like every game that gets released on the Switch, from an indie standpoint, sells a lot better than the PS4 and the Xbox One. Even so far as, I believe it was Ocean Hard, or was it Dragon Boy, Monster Boy, whatever the.
Yeah, it was Monster Boy. Monster Boy,
I think that the developers said that the game had outsold all other platforms combined.
Yep.
Which is just crazy, especially if the Switch might be selling out. But the install base is still way smaller than the Xbox One and PS4. I think in the United States, we're at just a bit over 2 million right now.
That's right.
And I'm curious, they say United States, but do they include Canada and whatnot
in
there?
Yeah. It's okay. North America.
All right, so over 2 million units, and they're still outselling the competition, so that's huge. And indie developers are taking note, and right now it's a gold rush. Is that the saying?
Yeah.
To get their games on the Switch. And I want to talk a bit about those games first, but first I want to also mention third-party games, because I will be curious to know if third-party games are also performing well on the Switch. So I have a few games here for you that I think will really be influential to the future of the Switch as far as AAA third-party title goes, and then we'll go back to the eShop stuff. So I want to talk about a few games. First off is NBA 2K18. That game apparently is one of the closest ports the Switch got that it is compared to the Xbox One and PS4 version. Obviously, it doesn't run as well, but apparently the developers said that they really pull, like, it's not a half-ass job like another title I'm going to talk a bit in a while. So I'm going to be curious to see if NBA 2K18 performs well on the Switch. The other game is FIFA 18, which is really important because I believe that's the only game EA has brought to the Switch so far. And they got a bit hammered because FIFA 18 is unfortunately a watered-down version of FIFA, and I kind of find it a bit unfortunate that they're hoping that game sells well, and they're going to base the success of that game on if they're going to support the platform in the future. So that's a bit unfortunate, because we're not getting Madden, we're not getting NHL, and obviously MLB is all Sony. Well, not all Sony, but they are the only one doing a proper MLB game these days, so I don't think we're going to get the show anytime soon, although we did get RBI Baseball, which is apparently a crappy game. So we're not getting many of the sports titles, and I believe these are important titles to get, because I think many people are actually buying a Switch now and realizing that they can play all their favorite games on the go. So even though sometimes like the sports game you buy every year might not be the best version on the Switch, having the opportunity to play it everywhere might be an advantage that makes you consider buying that version instead. So I think it's important to know how these two titles sell, and I'm curious to see what the numbers are. I don't think they were released yet, but I can't wait to see them. And finally, I want to mention Skyrim and Doom, because those, especially Doom, and then we're going to get Wolfenstein 2, which I think will be like just a few months after the PS4 and Xbox One version. So that's the first time we're getting a AAA title that nobody thought could be made to the Switch. So if Doom and Skyrim really sell well, I think this could open up like Capcom and EA and Activision and Ubisoft, open up their eyes and say, okay, this Switch is not just a fluke anymore. It's not the classic old Nintendo system where first-party titles sell well and that's about it. Because if you remember, like this wasn't always the case with the Super Nintendo and the Nintendo. Like third-party sold so well that Nintendo even considered them competition for a while, and even limited the number of the games they could release, especially on the NES. I don't think they did that for the SNES, but anyway. So my point being is those titles, I'm really curious to see how they will sell.
Okay, I was trying to interrupt you there for a second, then I decided, no, I'll just shut up. Switch sales currently are over 6 million worldwide. So it's doing very well. The platform's doing very well. Obviously, nowhere near the install base of the Xbox One and the PlayStation 4, but we'll get more into specific titles later on with the eShop and why this is so very impressive. But going with what you're saying, I think it's going to be very important that those sports games sell. And it's going to be curious to see how they sell, because they have a lot of things going up against them. And ironically enough, due to Nintendo being Nintendo. And what I mean by that is sports games today are played mainly online. A lot of people buy them specifically for that reason. And yes, of course, you have your specific, franchise modes and all this sort of stuff. Of course, naturally. But a lot of these games are heavily played online. And why I say that the Switch has, a lot of things going against it in this regard is it's just not easy, or it's not as easy to play these games online with the same feature set. Now, yes, it is easy to go ahead and just start a game and play online, but it's with voice chat in particular. I really think they need to address this now. This whole app thing is just messed up, and I'm curious to see how these games sell, because if these games sell very well or comparatively well, maybe Nintendo will wake up and say like, oh, okay, you know what? We need an easier solution for online multiplayer. And I think something like that's going to need to happen. Like, I think these games have to sell well, though, in order for something like that to happen, because Nintendo will cater to the third parties. Believe me, if FIFA is like, the deciding game for EA, and it comes out and it sells like 550,000 units or something like that, that EA will take notice of that. They'll be like, okay, wow, that's not bad. You know what I mean? Considering the amount of users, that's not bad. And same thing with 2K, and same thing with everyone else. There are a couple of games that I've got my eye on. You mentioned Skyrim, you mentioned Doom, but there's also LA Noire. Like, I'm really curious to see how that performs in relation to the Xbox One and the PlayStation 4 version, and that one I'm picking up for sure. So I'm picking up LA Noire. I'm picking up. Let me just open up my list here. Skyrim is the other one that I'm certainly going to be picking up. Because why? Well, because you nailed it when you said you can take these games on the go. And having just gone to the airport and just flown, and I was playing, well, I finished off Golf Story while I was on the plane. It's a really unique experience, and it's the first time I've ever experienced something like this before. And yes, of course, Golf Story is not the best example to give of, say, like a console experience on the go. However, that wasn't the only game I played. So I went through, I played a little Project Octopath, I played some Mario Kart and other games like that, and it was really an interesting experience to experience those games on the airplane, like 30,000 feet in the air. And I think you really nailed it, that I think more and more people are realizing this, that when you buy the Switch version of a game, even if it has a couple of less features, so like Doom's going to be missing a couple of features here and there. And okay, yeah, that's unfortunate, but you essentially get two different versions of the game, because the platform allows you to play on the go and it allows you to play on the TV. And I think more and more and more people are going to be surprised by this, because I know I was. I played a little bit of Breath of the Wild while I was up in the sky, and I was just taken aback. I was like, wow, this is very, very impressive. So I have a feeling that come next year, you're going to see an explosion of third-party releases. I think Skyrim, LA Noire, and Doom, those three in particular, are going to sell very well on the Switch. I'm not sure about the sports games, but I'm hoping they do well too, for the exact same reason. I think it's going to be really interesting, especially with sports games. If you can do local multiplayer from one tablet, that is awesome, because I could have just, handed one of the Joy-Con to someone else or another controller, and they could go ahead and play. And that could prove very, very interesting.
Yep, that is available in FIFA 18, by the way. So
there you go.
All right, so that's a good discussion. I want to go into the top 10 eShop games. And before you cut me off, I have a few things to say. But first, I'm going to list the top 10 games. So the number one game is Stardew Valley. Stardew Valley has been number one since its release date. Number two is Golf Story. Golf Story, I've been checking these. I really find this interesting that Nintendo has the top 10 selling games on the eShop, because they do this with the 3DS, but in the 2DS they just mention download, so it's basically all demos and whatnot. But with the Switch, it's actually games sold. So number two is Golf Story, and I've been checking this for like a week and a half, and Golf Story has always been number two. At number three, we have The Flame in the Flood, another game that was recently released, and the developers went to Twitter and said that their sales for the month, their forecast has been eclipsed in the first day. And it was number 8 when I last checked, like I believe 2 days ago, and now it's number 3. Number 4 is Sonic Mania. Number 5 is Overcooked Special Edition. Number 6 is Minecraft Nintendo Switch Edition. Number 7 is SteamWorld Dig 2, a game I'm really curious to see, and I think I'm going to give that one a download after eventually, because it seems awesome. Number 8 is Picross S. Number 9 is Fire Emblem Warriors. And number 10 is Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. So how many Nintendo games do you see in there?
All of them. No, exactly.
So how many did you see? Did you...
I wasn't paying any attention. I saw that you said Fire Emblem was... I think that's it, no?
and Mario Kart and Picross. So there's only
Okay,
three
Picross, okay.
Nintendo games in the top 10, and they're all 8, 9, and 10. And the funny thing is, Fire Emblem Warriors just cracked the top 10, and Mario Kart 8 Deluxe was 11 and 12 for like the past few days, and now it just passed. It just was put back into the top 10 eShop. So it kind of diminished my point because I wanted to like if we would have done that yesterday, there would have only been one. But even Picross, like I don't think you even knew it was from Nintendo, right?
No, I didn't.
So there we go. I'm curious though. I don't know. There's not many retail games in here, so either this tells me that the retail versions of the games, most people are still purchasing them physical. So that's why because I think Fire Emblem Warriors, if you would match like the physical and digital sales, would probably outsell most of these games. But this is still something really interesting because. Like I said, like these are all indies, and even a Microsoft game is outselling Nintendo games on the eShop right now with Minecraft at number 6. So I really love these numbers. Well, numbers. We don't get actual numbers, but these rankings, and I keep checking them, and it's been really pleasant to see Stardew Valley and especially Golf Story performing so well. These are basically, Stardew Valley, everyone since the Switch was announced was waiting for this, but Golf Story came out of nowhere, was announced like 2 months ago, and it's performing so well. What do you think of these games? And what about SteamWorld Dig 2, Ed? Did you ever try that series?
No, I have not. I've not tried that. I will say this, I don't know how these games are performing overall. The rankings I find fascinating, but like you mentioned, I'm not sure sales-wise. I wish we had some sort of like a calibration or something like that we could get an idea, some sort of focal point to say like, okay, well, we know that Fire Emblem Warriors, for example, or like Mario Kart, we know that Mario Kart sold 3 million and the digital sales represented 42%, and then you could factor that in to get an idea of how these games are actually selling. And the only reason why I mention this is because Breath of the Wild is still in the top 10 physical selling games, and it's been in the top 15 ever since it was released, and yet it's not in the top 10 digital downloads on the eShop. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. So that game is selling a lot on physical. It's basically selling as much as the Switch. So it's like every time the Switch sells out, if you look at the numbers, well, it's comparative to what Breath of the Wild is actually selling in terms of physical copies.
Yeah, that's true. Just a side note, though, there's also a Wii U version. So we can imagine that the Wii U version is probably selling, I'd say, about 5 to 10% of those numbers.
Yeah, sure. But I mean, like, even that, if we remove the Wii U version completely, I'm fairly confident that it would still keep it, within the top 15 retail games. So my point just being that we have no idea how these games are actually selling. But what we do know is that people are happy. People are very, very happy in terms of the developers. Number 11, which you didn't mention, was Axiom Verge, right?
Yep.
Okay, now
and I apologize for the background noises. My kids seem to be giving Elizabeth a hard time right now.
Oh, that's okay. It's the more the merrier. The more Lacroix we have, the better it is. I found that very interesting because shortly after the game was released, I forget his name, something Happ, I think it is, Tom Happ or something like that. Anyways, his name could be Virgil Samsonite for all I know. He had mentioned on Twitter that he was really shocked by how well the Switch version was performing. And the same thing with, what's it called? Retro City Rampage, I think? I think that's what it's called. Same thing. The creator of that game said that he was blown away by how well the Switch version was doing. So with those two games as sort of like a basis, I'm going to go on a whim here and say that I think these games are selling very well. I think they're actually selling super well. And the fact that like Mario Kart is where it is, what was it? It was number 8?
Number 10.
Number 10, okay. So it was Picross was 8?
Number 8, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm fairly confident that like Mario Kart is over the like 20,000 type of thing, you know, or like 10,000. And if that's the case, then it really makes you wonder how Stardew Valley and how Golf Story are performing. And it really makes me wonder if a game like Cuphead, which has now sold over 1 million copies on Steam and Xbox One or Xbox Live or whatever you want to call it, I really wonder how much more a game like that would sell on the Switch. And I really am curious with Golf Story and Stardew Valley. I'm really curious.
Just sorry to interrupt, but Golf Story is the only exclusive in there besides the Nintendo game. So even if they bring, like, there's been huge rumors of Crash Bandicoot, the Insane Trilogy, coming into the Switch later. So even if that and Cuphead come way later, it seems that people don't care and still buy games that are either old or not exclusive. Because Stardew Valley is a 2016 game, and it's number 1 on the Switch, and it looks like it will stay there for a while. So people are buying this up. This is awesome news for Switch fans, because this means that indies will bring their games to the Switch no matter what now. And they are kind of in a hurry right now, because the people that were sleeping on the Switch are realizing that people are actually buying games, not just Nintendo games.
Yeah, exactly. And I think Monster Boy was a really good sort of clue of what was going on, because when that game was released and it was announced that it had actually outsold all the other versions of the game combined, that's when indies really should have started taking notice and saying, well, wait a second here, what's going on? And I'm really curious to hear, and I'm hoping we do hear a little bit about Golf Story in particular, only because it is an exclusive. And I would really like to find out, like, did this thing break 300,000? Did it break 500,000? Or did it break like 2,000? You know what I mean? I'm really curious. So I hope I'm following, you told me to follow them on Twitter, and that's exactly what I'm doing. And I'm hoping that we get at least some hints as to how well the game's performing.
Yeah, so do I. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if by the end of the year that game has sold more than 1 million copies. It seems like everybody's buying that game. And for good reason. We're going to talk about it later. So anyway, I think that's a good subject. And just before we talk about Golf Story and Stardew Valley, I want to ask you a question real fast. And that's because I don't know if you've been out of it and if you've listened or watched podcasts or went on video game websites, but the topic right now is microtransactions and loot crates. And my question of that is that most big companies right now are concentrating on multiplayer games because of that, because of the fact that they can try to sell you extra stuff. In order for you to be competitive or have some what did they call that, cosmetics to show off during online games. Do you think Nintendo will ever stop making single player games because of that trend?
No. And my simple reason is you and I cannot go on Switch right now and voice chat without downloading an app on a phone and having 50 million wires and stuff like that. Simple as that. Nintendo does what Nintendo wants. It never followed trends. Online has been a trend for over a decade, and there are still games that Nintendo will release that are not online enabled. And so, no, I don't think so. I think Nintendo will always be Nintendo. They will never follow what other people do. They will always do their own thing, and that's that.
You know, I agree with you. I think this is a no-brainer, but I want to play devil's advocate a bit here. Because how much do you think The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild sold? Like, let's say it sold like 8 million or 9 million, and let's say its lifetime sales will be 12, 13, 14, 15 million maybe. How much did Ocarina of Time sold? Can you Google that quickly?
Yeah, and
I have
and
something
I don't think
I'm going towards.
I don't think Breath of the Wild is at 8 million when there's only 6 million Switches, but
No, but
you never
there's
know.
Wii U sales.
Yeah, but even
And
then, I don't
Switch sales
think.
are pretty much 1-to-1, so 6 plus 2.
Yeah, I doubt it. Let's see. All right. You know what did sell really well while I'm looking this up? Rabbids on the
Yeah.
Switch. It's like everything on the Switch sells well. All right. Just give me 2 seconds. Why is this acting up? All right. The Legend of Zelda. Let's start with that. Okay. Ocarina of Time on the N64 was just under 8.
Just
And
under 8.
Yeah, and Breath of the Wild is at 4.
Okay. So let's say Breath of the Wild will eventually probably reach Ocarina of Time. My point I wanted to make to you is how much compared to Ocarina of Time do you think Breath of the Wild costs to make?
Well, significantly more.
Like, would you say that 10 times more is not that far off from
Well,
the...
that I don't know about 10 times because the problem with Zelda on the N64 was that it was remade 3 times.
Yeah, but don't forget that Breath of the Wild was probably in development for 5-6 years.
Yeah, but that's actually about the same because
No, true,
Zelda...
it's about the same, but games are cost way more to
Yeah,
make now.
exactly.
So plus, let's say they both took 5 years to make. It's 5 years now is way more than 5 years in 1992 that they started, 1991, whatever it is.
Yeah, I wouldn't say 10. I would say maybe like 3 times, something like that would be more realistic because you also have to remember that Nintendo doesn't do what all the other guys do. So they're still using archaic technology. They're still using assets from like the GameCube era and stuff like that.
Okay, but that's not super important. Okay, let's say 3 times. What I'm trying to say here, okay, my next point is how much did you pay for Ocarina of Time in 1998?
I spent $99.99.
And how much did you spend on Breath of the Wild in 2017?
A lot less.
Exactly, and that doesn't even account for inflation.
Yep.
So, what I'm saying is that single-player AAA games like Breath of the Wild now cost a lot more than they did back in the day, with a lot less return. And Nintendo has been smart on this. They put DLC out with Zelda, and because to account for that, because I think people are not realizing that you can't make as much money with games now, especially since they cost so much more, and the prices have not gone up for like 10 years. Even with like the lower economy, they haven't gone up at all. So if developers want to make the same amount or more money than they did before, they have to go with the loot box or microtransaction or DLC way. And that's why I'm wondering eventually if Nintendo will be able to continue to afford to make AAA single player games, or if they will have to go more towards like the new Super Mario Brothers series or the 2D Zeldas or stuff like that to be able to make these games profitable. Do you think it will ever go to that route, or if Nintendo will, like in 15 years, still have a way to make a AAA game without microtransactions and stuff like that?
Well, I think the whole industry is moving more and more towards that, and that's been a long, long time that this trend. I don't know. Like you say, I haven't paid any attention to what's going on in the industry right now, so I don't know why this is actually a topic at all. Considering the whole industry has been moving towards this ever since the App Store was created.
Okay, well, I'm going to give you just a quick reboot. Basically, Star Wars Battlefront 2 has loot boxes I believe, that can actually improve your player. So people are saying it's pay to win, as you can actually pay for better equipment to use in multiplayer matches. And Battlefront 2 is not out yet, so it's still not super sure that's the case, but there's also loot boxes in Destiny 2 that have been quite controversial. And in Forza Motorsport 7 or 8, whatever it is, the latest one, there's also loot boxes that can affect your performance. So it's kind of, the industry seems to be going in that direction right now. And also EA just canned Visceral, I believe, and they were making a Star Wars single player game, and some people are saying that they did that, although it's not confirmed, because they want to go more into the direction of games and services. They are not really interested in making single player games where, and I'll give you a perfect example that's perfect with me. I bought Pokemon Sun and Moon 3 times because I'm an idiot.
Yes.
And I gave basically the Pokemon company, I gave them $120. But I played those games for like 300 hours. I would have gladly paid for DLC or for microtransactions for that game, but Pokemon has never done that before. And eventually, I think it might not be reliable for them, because, like I said, I played that game for 300 hours, but they only got my money on launch day and then didn't see a single cent from me after. And I know people will say, well, that's always been the case, but can that be sustainable forever?
No, I mean, look, the industry is going to always try and get the maximum amount of money off of people. They've been doing this forever. And I again, it's one of these things where I don't know why this is still an issue. Since the 1970s, they have been doing this. What they used to do years ago was they would charge you the same amount of money, but they would cut the development time. So let's say a game took 6 months to make and they charge you $60 for it. And of course, I'm making this all up, but just to give you an example, if they wanted to make more money off of that $60, they would make the next game in 5 months, and then 4 months, and then 3 months, and then 2 weeks, and so on and so forth. Great example is what one of the games that led to the collapse of the video game industry with E.T. being made in, what was it, 6 weeks, 3 weeks, something like that. Yet Atari still charged the same $60. And this sort of mentality, this sort of thing has existed forever. They will always try and get the maximum amount of money off of people. If that means loot boxes, if that means DLCs, if that means in-app purchases, if that means whatever, it's the way it is. And it's funny because people for years have been talking about the fact that, you know, oh, well, like back in the NES days, that didn't happen. Yes, it did. You just didn't see it, because it happened behind the scenes. And people are like, oh yeah, well, you know, Final Fantasy VI didn't have like a season pass, and that was a more full, rich experience. Yes, yeah, absolutely it was. But it was also made by 50 people, not 820. You know what I mean? Like, it's... These guys, this is the way the industry works. It's based on a capitalist system, and they want money. I mean, that's their core objective. But going back with Nintendo, I don't think Nintendo will ever do it, because Nintendo's Nintendo. I think it's that simple. I don't have any arguments. I don't have anything else. It's just, like I said, the very fact that they still release games that don't have what are considered modern day features speaks to what I'm saying. But in terms of your Electronic Arts, your Ubisofts, your what's the other big one there?
Activision, maybe?
Sorry, what?
Activision, no?
Yeah, Activision, thank you. That was the one I was looking for. Those three companies, absolutely. Because their primary mandate is to keep their shareholders happy, and they don't care. And nobody cares, right? Like, that's the other thing. I think we humanize these companies way too much. Like, Nintendo doesn't care, guys. Sega doesn't care. EA doesn't care. They don't care about you. They don't care about me. They care about making money. And yes, of course, the creators of these particular games don't want to release something that's broken. No one's going to want to do that because they're going to want to have a sustainable franchise. So let's say Call of Duty 426 comes out and is, you know, microtransactions up to yin yang, these loot boxes or whatever they're called. They want to design the game in such a way that it can be fun for all, because they realize that people can't all purchase these sorts of things, but they want you to. So if they can sort of straddle that line, like you're saying with Destiny 2 and stuff like that, I don't know much about these sorts of things, but just looking at it from a business perspective, it makes sense. If they can make it that there's a 5% chance that it will increase your game, let's say, and in other words, make you a better killer or whatever it is in the particular game, they're going to do that because they know that 95% of the chance or time when you get that particular drop, it's just going to be a cosmetic thing or be a minor enhancement. But if there's 5 or 10 or maybe, you know, they're going to keep pushing this, maybe 25%, maybe 50%, it's eventually going to get to the point where, you know, you're going to want to purchase these sorts of things. But right now, I think we're in the stage where the developers are still messing around with this and trying to see, like, okay, well, where's that sweet spot? Because we don't want to break the game, but we still want people to buy these particular DLCs, let's call them. And of course, why do they want to do that? Because they want to make more money. And it's simple logic. And it's the same thing with Breath of the Wild. That's a perfect example where you were saying about Ocarina of Time and how much it costs and all that jazz. Absolutely. There's only a finite amount of copies that people are going to purchase. One could argue that the eShop, you know, they make more money there. Excuse me, there's a higher profit margin with the digital distribution. Sure there is, you know, but there's also
I think
costs.
that will solve a lot of issues if we get to a digital only future, let's say in 10 years, like that will cut a lot of the costs off, of course. So that might be a solution. But I still think that the DLC numbers for Breath of the Wild, the DLC numbers for Mario Kart 8 on the Wii U, these things will matter, and Nintendo will need to continue to incorporate this. I think there's a season pass in Fire Emblem Warriors also. Mm-hmm. Like they will need every single Nintendo AAA games from now on, single player or not, will have DLC, and they have no choice because, like I said before, games, the cost it takes to make a game will only go up. And it seems like the industry is not prepared to up the price of games anytime soon. So, if my math is terrible, but it seems that if a game costs more money and it's the same price, it seems that you're not making as much money. So you have to figure out another way to do so. So maybe you can add some final thoughts on there because I do want to move on with this.
Yeah, sure. No. Okay, I'll just wrap up by saying like a couple of things that just because a game is digitally distributed doesn't mean that all costs are cut, because you do still have infrastructure that you're going to have to maintain. Servers, they don't run themselves. There's a lot of behind the scenes stuff there that costs a lot of money. And I also want to just quickly mention with Breath of the Wild, when I said about 3 times the cost, I was of course not looking at inflation, right? So like I'm saying that today, if Ocarina of Time was made and the dollar was where it would probably be around 3 times. And maybe I'm way off, you know what I mean? Like maybe I'm way off, but I will not argue at all with the fact that I think moving forward, all games will have DLC. That I 100% agree with. What I disagree with is that Nintendo will ever stop making like your classic single player experience. That I don't think they'll ever do, just because Nintendo's Nintendo. But I absolutely agree that they will find or incorporate means of continually charging people to play their games. And maybe one day that will be the future. There won't be any DLC, but you won't actually own anything. So essentially you'll rent your games. And what I mean by that is the new Zelda comes out and it costs not $5, but it costs like a Netflix type thing, right? So Nintendo will charge you $20 a month and that's it forever. And you'll just play games like that. You'll never be able to buy a game. Who knows? That's very possible that one day we'll move into like a service type of thing where you'll just have to keep paying forever and ever and ever to play these games.
Yeah, we'll see. I don't. It would have to be a lot more than $20 because that seems like that seems like when people, if you $20, so $60 every 3 months, so that's 4 games a year.
Oh no, but they could even do it per game.
That's besides the point. So that's an interesting conversation. I sure hope that we get some comments on that. If people are curious whether Nintendo will continue to make AAA games, and if they do, if they will maybe change their approach a bit. And I also want to quickly mention that the thing about the servers being cost and whatnot are true, but there's still servers for physical games, so I did not see the reasoning there. Maybe because you're talking about the infrastructure for the eShop.
Yeah, I'm saying basically if everything goes,
Okay.
like the bandwidth will be significantly higher than it is right now.
All right, so let's talk Golf Story. We have both completed it. We both put well over 20 hours in it. I want us to go all out on this game. Let's talk about it. Let's say what's good, what we like, what we didn't like, everything, and why people should run to the eShop and buy the game. So I'll let you start, Jared.
Oh, how dare you. I've been talking nonstop for like half an hour. Damn you. Okay, well, the game's all right.
All right. That's it, guys.
Okay. So, why did I download this game?
Because of me.
Okay. Why did I download this game?
No clue.
No, I'm trying to think seriously.
I told you to download that game in the last Canadian Gamers, and minutes after you went and did that.
Yeah, but why? I never listened to you.
Because I told you to do that, and you often listen to me though.
Okay,
and you wanted footage for the podcast.
That's what it was. No, that's what it was. You had mentioned that's what it was. You had said that you should go download it. Looks cool, blah blah blah, and that we could use the footage for the last podcast. That's what it was, and that's what triggered the whole thing. Okay, so the reason why I wanted to just quickly mention that was because I really had very little to no expectations for this particular game. I thought it was like, oh, okay, like whatever. It looked all right. Looks like a Super Nintendo type of, well, it looks better than that, but it looks like a 2D golf game, and I was like, well, I'm not really a huge golf fan, but I've played some of these weird mix mash type of games before that had like RPG elements, and instead of it being like a full-fledged RPG, you do something else. Like I can't think of any off the top of my head right now, but I have played in the past, especially in like the Sega Master System era. There was some really weird games that did the sort of fusion of different genres. So with Golf Story, the thing that got me immediately was the first 10 minutes of the game. I don't know what we're going to talk about, if we're going to spoil anything, or...
Yeah, let's spoil it a little bit. Not too much, but
okay, well,
minor spoilers.
The game begins with you playing golf with your father, just like a little funny sort of flashback type of thing, and then it fast forwards like a number of years, either a decade or 20 years or something like that. Just that intro scene where you're playing golf with your father was enough for me, where I was like, there's something about this. Like, the charm that the characters and the NPCs give off is brilliant. And I can't give you specific examples, but just the way the writing, like the text changes whenever there's like an awkward situation or a character is mad or whatever, like the font size will change. There's a little vibration, and like it just oozes so much damn charm that I was bloody hooked. Instead of playing Dragon Quest XI and finishing it off, I actually went pretty much straight and would play Golf Story every single chance I had. And the gameplay is great. Absolutely great. I again, I don't want to go on and on and on and on.
I just want to mention that I typically don't like golf games, but this one is amazing because they keep it simple. Like, I like when golf games, it's press A once, then again at the top, and then as close as possible to the middle. They've used that system for many golf games, but I think sometimes they overcomplicate things. That's what I want in a golf game. 3 button presses. Then of course there's other things like backspin and front spin. And backspin and front spin, like I noticed that like a few hours in by pressing start and checking the controls. I don't think they actually tell you about that, right? Like they tell you that you can put some English on the ball, but the backspin and front spin thing, do they actually tell you in game?
I don't recall. Maybe, but I don't recall.
Anyway, so there's little things like that. Like I really like that the golfing is solid. Like I really enjoyed that because they kept it simple. So that's just what I wanted to quickly mention before.
Well, you say simple. What I like is that they layered it. And that's what I really, really like. So like at the beginning, when you're learning with your father, you're learning how to press the 3 buttons. That's basically it. But then slowly but surely, they start to introduce this concept of why you have different clubs. What does it mean to like putt the ball, and what the hell is a bogey, and what is an eagle, and what does it mean to be on par? And it's so funny that as someone that really isn't a golf fan, this game taught me more about golf than any other video game about golf that I ever played before, and was by far one of the most enjoyable games of the year. Has a fantastic storyline. The gameplay is absolutely awesome. And what's cool is that you can make the game really challenging if you want to. Not in terms of difficulty settings or anything like that, but once you start to purchase additional clubs, if you decide that you don't want to use some of those clubs, you can really make this challenging. And I really like that. So as I was getting better at the game, I started to mess around with doing just that. So I would use the most random clubs and see if I could finish a course on par. And it was funny because like I'm sitting on the airplane playing this, and I'm like, I shouldn't be having this much fun. You know, like this is a golf game. What the hell is going on? And people really don't get it, but you need to play this because this year alone, okay, there has been some amazing games released. We've had The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. We had Horizon Zero Dawn. Cave Story Plus was released. I really enjoyed Blaster Master Zero. A Jared to the Past. That was by far the best one. And this game is way up there. Like for me anyway, this is a solid contender for Game of the Year, if for no other reason than it's such a joy to play, and the fact that it really came out of nowhere. I did not expect this to be as good as it is.
Yeah, I think people that are hesitating on this game because they don't like golf should not think about this as a golf game, but rather as a strategy RPG. Because instead of the combat system, you're golfing, sure, but it's more like a strategic golfing game because they give you these goofy scenarios where there's basically birds or badgers that can steal your balls. There's sometimes there's one of my favorite levels is by far the level where it's all old people and they play golf a certain way where it's absolutely hilarious. Like they say it's better to have a safe 6 than a risky 4, which basically means they'd rather have a bogey than a birdie. It makes no logical sense whatsoever, but that's how they live their life and that's how they play the game. It's so funny. I just adore the levels in this game because there's basically 6 different worlds or 5 different worlds and stuff like that, and the characters are so well written. Like there's this guy called Max Pro or Max something, and he's Max, just an asshole to you for no reason, reason at all. Even at the beginning of the game when you're trying to get a coach, and the coach sees you play and he tells you that you're horrible at the game. And then his students will do like the worst possible shot ever, and he will tell them, "Go swing." Like it's hilarious what's happening here, and just I don't want to spoil too much, but the writing is fantastic. Like I was laughing, and just those old folks, man. I don't know what's so charming about them, but that was by far my favorite world. Like I love the rules they added that you had to play with these old golf clubs that were terrible. Did you try the last course with those golf clubs?
No, I did not. And
Well, good luck.
I can imagine. But yeah, no, and so I mean, I can go on and on and on about all the good stuff, right? There were a few things that if and hopefully they will, if they do make a follow up to this, and like I said, I hope they do. There was a couple of things that I would add. I would add a little variation in terms of some of the side content, because I loved some of the side content. Like there's a mini putt range in there, which is still golf. Then you have other stuff where you have to like defeat some skeletons and you have to hit them in the head with like with a special type of golf ball. And then there's another time you have to like get an eye in skeletons and like all this weird random stuff. And I loved all of that.
Yeah, like for me, I love like the drone golf. Mm-hmm. But that was only one quest in the entire game, and there's no more drone golf after.
No, exactly. And so like that I would add. I would just add a little bit more variation to some of the side quests, because most of the side quests are simply to hit the ball in a certain range, or to get like a hole in one. Well, not a hole in one, but like just to get the ball in a specific place. And that's the overwhelming majority of the side quests are to do that. So that's one thing that I would personally, I would hope that they would add. Because did you like the werewolf scenario?
Yeah, the murder mystery. Yeah, that was an awesome part of the game. Yeah,
I loved that, and I was like, oh man, I could have used like another something like this. Maybe not like obviously the exact same thing, but another like scenario based sort of like, I don't want to say mini game, but side quest or whatever. It was part of the story, but that was really good, and that helped break up sort of the it's not monotonous, but just like doing some of the similar gameplay, like to break up some of the gameplay. So that's one thing. And the only other thing was something that Stephen and I had mentioned quite a lot, was about adding in like the ability to stop a play and reset early on. And that might actually be coming. I don't know. On Twitter, the developer whose name escapes me right now.
Sidebar Games. Yeah, they mentioned that they've submitted a patch to Nintendo a while back, and they're still waiting for approval. But I think the main the main function of that patch is to fix some bugs. I don't think they're actually because what Jared is saying is that sometimes there are challenges that can take up to 5 minutes to complete, and you might know right at the beginning that you're going to fail it. But in order to restart it, you need to keep hitting the ball. Let's say you have 20 shots. You need to keep hitting those shots. You can't press start and say restart, which is an unfortunate simple fix that I wish they would add.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. I have nothing else at all negative to say.
Yeah,
everything else is perfect.
One little thing I would like to add in from negative, it's not that negative, it's just as far as post-game content is, I've beaten the game and I think I did every single quest there is, and I have no way to know, and there's just not really anything else to do after. Like, have you found anything to do? Because I've walked around and there's no new quests appearing, and characters are not really saying anything new. So besides that, all you can do is go into quick mode where you can replay the golf courses, and I've been doing that a lot, and it's fun, but it's unfortunate because they don't save your scores, so there's not really any point to do so. Like, I'd love to try some multiplayer, but it's only local multiplayer, so I don't know. I think, like, I would buy DLC for this in a second.
Well, so would I. But yeah, no, that's it. I mean, I'm okay with no post-game content sort of thing, but I really do hope that they make another one, because this was just, like, we don't give awards for, like, you know, the biggest surprise of the year, but if I did give an award for that, this would certainly get it.
Oh, yeah.
I did not expect this at all.
Yeah, me neither, because, like I said, I'd never played golf games. And like, I was surprised that you were enjoying this so much, because you play sports games even less than I do. So yeah, that's a really, like you said, like that would be our surprise of the year. By
And
sure. So
that's saying something though, because this year, like I said, like there's been some really excellent games, and like I really want to praise this particular title because, like, guys, if you own a Switch and you like how we're hyping this up, really give it a shot. It's a really cheap game, and it really deserves to be purchased.
oh yes, it does, and it's like, what is it? Is it $20?
Yeah,
And it's a
yeah.
20-hour adventure. Like that's a lot of bang for your buck. Okay, I want to talk about Stardew Valley. Have you even booted it up? Have you played it a bit?
No,
Not at
unfortunately,
all.
I had saved it for the flight back, and unfortunately, I was just too tired.
Okay, well, I bought the game, and right after I finished Golf Story, that's one of the first things I did was I started Stardew Valley. And I still go to Golf Story here and there, but Stardew Valley, I didn't know much about it. I knew it was very successful. I knew it was kind of like a Harvest Moon type of game. That's about all I knew. And I played it for the first hour or two. I'd say that I thought it wasn't for me. I thought like I would probably stop playing it, and I was glad I gave it a chance, but it just wasn't clicking. And now I'm like 15 hours in, and I just can't stop playing. Every minute I get, that's all I do. And I told you before that this was a game that seemed meant for me because I love games like Animal Crossing, Harvest Moon. I used to play a lot back in the day. Even more recently, Oasis on the 3DS, which like everybody's sleeping on that game, like will be in my top 10 of the year. Like I like these type of games, like farming and farming like plants, animals, and resources and stuff like that, with simulation, with relationships to other town folks. Like Animal Crossing, basically, when Animal Crossing gets released on the Switch, like say goodbye to me. You won't see me again for a while. Like I love those games. And Stardew Valley, man, oh my God, that game is amazing. Like, and I'm afraid you won't give it the proper chance because, like I said, you need to invest in this game before you start to seek the rewards. Like, I'd say you probably need to give it like 3 or 4 hours before it starts not getting fun, but you start to get it. Because this is a game that really relies on money. You need to make money in order to be able to buy new stuff and do activities or whatnot. And you don't really make that much money in the beginning because you don't have what you need. You don't have like animals or a place to put the animals in there. So the amount of money you make in the beginning is limited. But if you keep at it, man, this game gets addicting. There's so much stuff in this game. It's crazy. Like there's farming, there's like farming animals, like all kinds of animals, like ducks, chickens, cows, pigs, whatever you name it, even dinosaurs, if you believe it. But there's also the agriculture part where you can plant stuff. There's cutting, like you need to go and cut trees or harvest stones. There's a fishing mini game that's awesome. Well, mini game. There's a fishing aspect to the game that's awesome. There's a collecting aspect to the game that's awesome. There's even dungeon crawlings with monsters that you need to fight and whatnot. And it's also a dating simulator where you can try to court
Court.
a male or female to marry and then have children. So there's so much in this game that I probably will not ever see like even half of it. It's incredible. And I want to say this, and I don't say these things lightly, but if you've played Stardew Valley on another system and you like the game and you like it a lot, buy a Switch. It's worth buying a Switch just for that game because being able to play that game on the go is a game changer. And I think that if you're a fan of Stardew Valley, you should run out and buy a Switch if you haven't already because that game is so amazing, man. I can't believe it. And I can't wait for you to try it, and hopefully you give it a chance because I know that you enjoyed Animal Crossing. This is a lot more in depth than Animal Crossing. There's a lot more micromanagement you need to do, but still, like, it's so worth it, and the visuals are awesome. I love the art style that's coming back, the Super NES on drug art style, like you would call it, that's coming back. Like, I love it.
Yeah, me too, man. It's like the SNES really is probably my favorite system of all time. I've always debated between that and the NES, but now that I'm playing like the SNES Classic, like I'm really leaning towards. I think this probably is my favorite system because, like, the animations and stuff are just absolutely stunning, and I have Stardew Valley already downloaded. It was all good to go. I was just waiting rather, to play it on the way back. And I heard the same thing from the limited amount of research that I did, that it is a little intimidating, and that you do have to give it a chance before it like sinks its claws into you. I'm just really concerned right now because I made a promise to myself, and I've been really good. If you look at the games that I have this year, it's like every year it's getting better and better and better. With like what I'm purchasing less and less and less every year, and I'm concerned because like I still have to go through Dragon Quest 11. I've got to finish that, and I'm really looking forward to the new Mario, which hits like next week or something like that. Yep. And I'm just concerned that I'm going to get into this situation where I won't be able to play the game, and that's going to be very annoying.
Well, I get you on that, but it's just like for me, I don't even think I'll stop playing Stardew for Mario. Like I might give Mario a chance, maybe it'll hook me, but I'm not that big of a 3D Mario guy. Mm-hmm. But Stardew Valley, it's just, man, like I don't know what's going to happen with that game because it got its hooks on me right now. So we'll see, but it's just an incredible game. Like anybody listening to this show should give it a try. Again, not expensive, and it offers so much. Like I don't know when I started this. I think I started this on Monday or Tuesday, and I'm already like 15 hours in. Like it's incredible. Oh, wow. We're Friday right now for those listening to this show. So yeah, and anything you want to ask, or your
No. I've done like a lot of research on it, so I know what it's all about. I'm just looking forward to actually like checking it out.
Well, hopefully by the next time we do a Fanboyz, you'll have played it, so we'll have a bit more discussion to do about that game. But yeah, really, really awesome. Really looking forward to our next few shows because we have our Canadian Gamers Game of the Year show, which is coming up, which is always my favorite episode to do every year. And I also want to do a year in review of the Switch for our next Fanboy, and also a prediction for 2018 for Nintendo in another show. So can't wait to do those more episodes of the podcast eventually. And like always, we end this with the blast from the past, but today I'm not going to talk much about it because since we've decided that the last episode will actually be released, like I will tell you guys to go listen to that episode eventually, which has a blast from the past, which is Pokemon Gold and Silver, which I've played the heck out since its release on the 3DS Virtual Console, and I'm actually quite curious because this is a game that I think I might actually have picked before for Blast from the Past. So you need to do the master list. Every podcast we say we should do it, and then we don't. So you have a good, fast computer. You should quickly check out the last few minutes of our Fanboyz podcast to write down a master list, damn it.
I'm not doing that. Never. Yeah, you probably have done that in the past. And knowing me, I'm going to pick like a Link to the Past. I don't think I've ever picked that. I'm going to because it is a blast from the past. But damn you. All right.
Alright, so like Gold and Silver, go check out the last episode if you want to hear more. Actually, I think I talk about it for like 5-6 minutes in it, if not more. So go ahead, finish this bad boy off.
Alrighty, as you all know, our podcasts give every second Sunday on here on YouTube, but they're also made available as soon as they're ready via any of the popular streaming services like iTunes and stuff like that for podcast, well, I should say podcast services. And outside that, I want to say it's good to be back home. It's great to have Steven participating here on a more regular basis. And let us know. We had some very interesting discussions today, and I think it's going to be It's going to be very important that you guys give us some feedback, leave some comments, particularly about some of the big items like the Patreon stuff and what you think about moving forward with DLC and stuff like that, because I think it's going to help shape not only the future of potentially this channel, but also of the whole industry, to see what you guys think is coming down the pipe. All right, everybody, we will catch you all in 2 weeks. Thanks for joining, and take care.